The evening was cool, and a light breeze was strolling through the narrow streets of the city, pushing people to warm cafes or home. Keanu Reeves was enjoying his walk after a tiring day of filming. He appreciated moments like this when he could be alone with his thoughts, away from the cameras and crowds. His route took him through one of the main squares, known for its street performers and bright lights that illuminated the old buildings. The atmosphere on the square was full of life. People were strolling around, enjoying the music coming from a corner where a saxophonist was performing, and stopping to watch small performances by street magicians. One such group caught Keanu's eye. A young man named Martin was performing magic tricks using cards, coins, and even small fire tricks. His movements were confident, and each trick was accompanied by enthusiastic shouts from the crowd. People stopped to watch him pull cards out of the air or create the illusion of levitation. Keanu stopped at the edge of the crowd and watched the performance closely. He noticed that Martin was not just demonstrating a technique, but also putting something personal, his story, into his tricks. There was grace in his movements and perseverance in his expression. He was not just a magician, but a man who knew how to evoke emotions and give joy to others. However, among the enthusiastic spectators, there were those who did not share this enthusiasm. Two policemen patrolling the square began to approach the performance venue. They stopped near Martin and began to rudely interrupt his show. One of them loudly stated that the performance was disruptive and that Martin should immediately stop his activities. The artist tried to explain that he was not breaking the rules, but the police did not listen. They started asking for permission to perform, and then turned to derogatory comments that were directed not only at his work, but also at him. The crowd gradually dispersed, leaving Martin alone with the police. Keanu continued to watch, but he could already feel the growing indignation. He saw the injustice in what was happening. This was not just a magician trying to make a living, but a man who brought joy to others. Without hesitation, Keanu decided to intervene. He came closer, calmly but confidently. The policeman didn't even pay attention to him at first, continuing to put pressure on Martin. Keanu asked them to explain what exactly the magician was violating, but they ignored his words. The atmosphere grew tense, and eventually one of the police officers rudely announced that he was detaining them both for obstructing the performance of official duties. Martin and Keanu were detained, although the actor himself did not show any resistance. His calm behavior only emphasized the absurdity of the situation. The policemen, not recognizing Keanu, treated him as rudely as they did Martin. They were taken to the police station, where they were left to wait in a common room for detainees. Martin looked confused and scared, but tried to keep his composure. Keanu, on the other hand, looked calm, as if it was just another adventure for him. While they were waiting, the police officers began filling out paperwork. One of them went into the room to check the detainees, and only then noticed Keanu. His face changed when he realized who they had detained. The policeman quickly left the room, and a few minutes later, the police station was in a commotion. All the employees were trying to figure out what to do next. They realized that they had detained not just a passerby, but a famous actor. After a while, the head of the department came into the room. He apologized to Keanu, explaining that there had been a misunderstanding. However, Keanu did not demand any privileges for himself. Instead, he used the moment to defend Martin. He explained that the magician had not done anything illegal and called on the police to show more respect for street performers. After several hours at the police station, Keanu and Martin were released. The police tried to smooth things over, but for Keanu, this was only the beginning. He decided not to leave Martin alone with his difficulties. This injustice became an incentive for him to help a man who just wanted to give people joy. After Keanu and Martin were released from the police station, they both went outside, where the cold night wind had calmed the emotions of the past few hours. Martin still couldn't believe that Keanu Reeves himself was standing next to him, an actor he had only seen on the big screen. He also couldn't understand why this person decided to intervene and help him in such a difficult moment. But Martin didn't ask too many questions. He was overwhelmed with gratitude and confusion. Keanu, on the other hand, remained calm and seemed to be lost in thought. He always felt that every encounter in life had a purpose. The fact that he had witnessed Martin being treated unfairly was a sign to him that he should act. He decided that he would not let this case go by. When they reached a small coffee shop, Keanu suggested that they go inside to warm up and discuss what had happened. Martin was hesitant at first, but agreed. Inside, the coffee shop was cozy, with warm light and a pleasant aroma of coffee. They sat down at a table in the corner, away from other customers, and Keanu ordered 2 cups of hot chocolate. Martin began to tell his story. He said that he used to work in a small theater, but due to financial difficulties, the theater was forced to close. Martin was left without a job, but he didn't want to give up his passion for magic. He started performing on the streets, trying to earn some money to support himself. However, his life became even more difficult when a few months ago, he came under pressure from the local police, who often harassed street performers, accusing them of causing inconvenience to pedestrians and residents. Keanu listened attentively without interrupting. He saw Martin as a man who was fighting for his place in the world, despite all the difficulties. His story was one of thousands of similar ones, but for Keanu, each one was unique and worthy of attention. He knew that he could do something to help Martin get out of this vicious circle. After Martin finished his story, Keanu offered him a plan. He said that he knew a few people who could help organize Martin's speaking engagements on a more serious level. In addition, he offered Martin a little financial help so that he could buy new equipment for his performances and no longer worry about possible fines or persecution. At first, Martin could not accept such generosity, but Keanu convinced him, saying that it was not just help, but an investment in his talent. The next few days were the beginning of a new life for Martin. Thanks to Keanu's help, he was able to find a rehearsal space where he could perfect his tricks and develop new shows. He also received an invitation to perform at a charity event organized by Keanu's friends, where influential people gathered who could help him advance his career. Martin worked hard to prepare for this performance, knowing that this was his chance to make a name for himself. When the day of the event came, Martin was full of excitement, but also determination. He went on stage in front of hundreds of spectators who saw his art for the first time. His tricks received a standing ovation, and his charisma captivated everyone present. After the performance, people approached him, offering contracts and opportunities for further cooperation. For Martin, it was like a dream come true. However, it was not only a victory for Martin. Keanu also felt the satisfaction of being able to help someone in need. He realized that his involvement in Martin's life was a catalyst for change that could inspire others. After the event, Martin and Keanu sat down at a table backstage to talk about the future. Martin was extremely grateful and asked why Keanu decided to help him. Keanu replied, "We all have our own talent and our own story. Your story deserves to be heard, and your talent deserves to be seen. I just did what was right." Martin spent the next few days helping other street performers. He organized a small group to protect the rights of street performers and promote their work. Thanks to Keanu's support, this initiative was another step towards making people appreciate the art that is born on the streets. The story of Martin and Keanu quickly spread in the media, causing a wide response. Many people learned about how the actor supported a street magician, and this story became a symbol of humanity and justice. The police, who had previously harassed artists, changed their policy, and street art began to receive more recognition and respect. This story was another reminder that even one good deed can change not only the life of one person, but also create a wave of positive change in society. Keanu returned to his business, but his impact on Martin's life remained forever as a symbol that kindness and compassion can work wonders. After the success of the charity event, where Martin performed in front of a large audience for the first time, his life began to change. But with it came a new responsibility, not only for himself, but also for other street performers who, like him, were trying to find their place in the world. Thanks to Keanu's support, Martin began to think about how he could use his new status to help others like him. The first step was to create a platform for street performers to share their performances, exchange experiences, and even learn from each other. Keanu supported this idea financially, helping Martin to create a simple and user-friendly website where artists could register and post information about themselves. The name of the platform, Street Art Magic, emphasized the idea that each artist brings something unique to the world. Martin devoted most of his time to developing the platform. He contacted other street artists he met in the squares and streets of different cities. Their stories were different, but they all had one thing in common: the struggle to be heard and recognized. Through the platform, Martin began to organize meetings where artists could discuss the problems they faced and look for solutions. While Martin was working on this project, Keanu continued to provide support. He helped to organize a series of workshops taught by professional illusionists, musicians, and actors. These workshops were open to all members of the platform. They not only raised the level of performers' skills, but also gave them confidence. Many of the artists who had previously performed only on the streets began to receive invitations to events and festivals. One day, Martin decided to organize a large street art festival. It was an ambitious project that would bring together artists from all over the country. He discussed the idea with Keanu, and he agreed to help without hesitation. The festival was called The Power of Street Magic and was planned for the central square of the city, where it all began for Martin. The preparations for the festival were challenging but inspiring. Martin gathered a team of volunteers to help with the organization. He contacted the local authorities to get permission to hold the event and negotiated with several sponsors who were willing to support the festival financially. Keanu also joined the organization, using his influence to draw attention to the event. When the day of the festival came, the square was packed with people. The performances started early in the morning and lasted until late in the evening. There were musicians, illusionists, dancers, painters, and even acrobats. Each performer had the opportunity to demonstrate their talent in front of an audience of thousands. Martin opened the festival with his performance. He created a show that combined traditional illusions with new tricks developed in recent months. His energy and charisma captivated the audience, and his final act received a standing ovation. After his performance, he was approached by several journalists who wanted to know more about his story and the festival. The culmination of the festival was Keanu's special address. He went on stage to the applause of the crowd and thanked all the performers for their work. He spoke about the importance of art and how it can change people's lives. His words were sincere and insightful, and they inspired many of the audience. After the festival, Martin and his team received a lot of positive feedback. Many of the artists said that it was the best day of their lives because for the first time they felt part of a large community. Martin realized that this was only the beginning. He decided to make the festival an annual event that could bring people together and showcase the beauty of street art. In addition, Martin started thinking about creating a fund to support street artists. He wanted this fund to provide financial assistance to those who found themselves in difficult circumstances but did not want to give up their art. Keanu supported this idea, and together they started working on its realization. The story of Martin and his journey from street magician to organizer of a large-scale festival has become a symbol of how one good deed can change not only the life of one person, but also inspire an entire society. For Keanu, it was another opportunity to show that humanity and compassion can work wonders, even if they start with the simplest thing: the desire to help someone in need. The months that followed the Power of Street Magic Festival were a period of rapid growth and change for Martin and his team. Not only did the festival draw attention to street art, but it also laid the groundwork for creating new opportunities for performers. Inspired by the success of the event, Martin started working on his next big project, the Street Artist Support Fund. The idea of this fund was to provide artists not only with financial assistance, but also with resources to develop their talent. Martin started by forming a team of like-minded people. He approached those he met at the festival and invited them to join the initiative. Among these people were both experienced artists and young performers who were just starting out. Each of them had their own ideas and a desire to do something more for the community. Together, they created the structure of the foundation, which included several key areas: financial support, organization of training programs, search for new performance opportunities, and protection of artists' rights. Funding was the main challenge. While Keanu continued to support Martin and his initiatives, Martin realized that additional resources were needed for long-term success. He began reaching out to local businesses and large corporations, inviting them to become partners in the foundation. During one of these meetings, he presented his idea to an influential entrepreneur who was fascinated by his story. The entrepreneur agreed to become the foundation's main sponsor, providing seed money for the first projects. With this funding, the foundation began organizing free workshops and trainings for street artists. The teachers were professionals from various fields of art: illusionists, musicians, dancers, and painters. One such workshop was a course on the basics of law, where artists were taught how to protect their rights and interact with the authorities. This was especially important because many artists often face discrimination and unfounded accusations. The foundation also launched a microgrant program for artists who wanted to realize their ideas. As part of this program, artists could apply, describing their project, and receive funding for its implementation. One of the first winners was a young violinist who dreamed of organizing a series of performances in schools to inspire children to take up music. Thanks to the foundation's support, his dream came true, and his project received wide coverage in the local media. At the same time, Martin worked on expanding the magic of street art platform. It has become not only a place to share experiences, but also a tool for finding new opportunities. By integrating an event calendar and a list of available venues, artists could plan their performances and collaborate with event organizers. The platform also included a section with reviews and recommendations, where viewers could support performers. One of the biggest challenges the foundation faced was related to legislation. In many cities, street performances were still considered illegal without special permits, and permits were difficult to obtain. Martin decided to use his influence to change the situation. He organized a meeting with local authorities to present the idea of creating special zones for street performers. These zones were to be spaces where artists could perform without fear of being fined or detained. Thanks to the support of Keanu and the public, this initiative was approved. The first such zones appeared in several major cities, and they quickly became popular with artists and audiences. These spaces were equipped with everything needed for performances: lighting, access to electricity, and even small stages. Martin frequently visited these areas, talking to the artists and listening to their ideas for further development of the project. On one of these visits, Martin met a boy named Thomas who was performing with his guitarist's father. Tomas was incredibly talented and played the violin with such passion that he drew a large crowd. Martin was impressed by his skills and decided to support his development. He invited Thomas to take part in the festival and offered him a scholarship to study at a music school. This meeting was another example of how one project can change the lives of many people. Keanu, although keeping a low profile, continued to support Martin and the foundation. He attended events organized by the foundation and often talked to the artists, learning their stories. For many of them, his support was not only material but also moral. He became a symbol of the fact that even the most famous people can remain humane and not indifferent to the problems of others. The Street Artist Support Fund became not just an organization, but a real movement that changed the perception of street art in society. Martin realized that there were still many challenges ahead, but he was confident that together with the team and the support of people like Keanu, they could overcome any obstacles. A story that started with an unjust detention turned into a powerful example of how kindness and cooperation can change the world. The story of Martin and the Street Performers Support Fund turned into a real legend that inspired people in many countries. The movement, started by an ordinary magician and supported by Keanu Reeves, grew in popularity. But with popularity came new challenges that required even more dedication from Martin and his team. A few months passed after the launch of the special zones for street performers. Martin decided it was time to take the next big step. He thought about creating an International Street Art Day, a holiday that would honor the work of artists around the world and draw attention to their work. The idea was to bring people from different countries together in a celebration of the art that is born in the streets. Martin turned to Keanu for advice and support. Keanu, as always, listened to him with respect and immediately came up with several ideas. They decided that the International Street Art Day should include performances, workshops, charity events, and even online broadcasts for those who could not attend the events in person. This required a lot of resources and partners, but Martin believed in the strength of his team. Organizing such a large-scale event was challenging but inspiring. Martin and his team started working on attracting artists and volunteers. They contacted street festival organizers in different countries to create a global network of events. One of the main locations was New York, where they planned to organize a big show in Times Square with the best performers from around the world. It took several months to prepare. During this time, Martin actively met with journalists, businessmen, and public figures, telling them about the importance of street art. He emphasized that it is not just entertainment, but a form of self-expression that unites people and makes our world brighter. His words resonated, and more people joined the movement. When the day of the holiday came, dozens of cities around the world turned into stages for street performers. In New York, thousands of people gathered in Times Square to see the best performances. Among the performers was Martin, who prepared a special show for the occasion. His act included new illusions that he had created in recent months. The audience was delighted, and the final trick received a standing ovation. Keanu, who was the guest of honor at the event, gave a speech. He thanked everyone for supporting art and believing in its power to change the world. His words were simple but very powerful. We are all artists in this world. Each of us can add something beautiful to it, and street artists are the ones who remind us of this every day. The International Street Art Day was a huge success. People from different countries shared photos and videos from the events, expressing their support for the movement. Many of them learned about Martin's story for the first time and were amazed at how one magician could inspire the whole world. After the celebration, Martin decided that the foundation should expand its activities. He proposed to create programs for children from low-income families who dream of becoming entertainers. These programs would include teaching the basics of illusion, music, dance, and drawing. Martin was convinced that art could give children hope and help them overcome difficulties. One of the first participants in the program was a boy named Alex, who lived in a small village and dreamed of becoming an illusionist. Thanks to the foundation's support, Alex was able to study with the best teachers and even perform at the next festival. His story has become a symbol of how kindness and cooperation can change lives. At the same time, Martin started working on a documentary about street performers. He wanted to show their stories, difficulties, and victories so that even more people could learn about this community. Keanu agreed to produce the film and helped to recruit talented directors and cinematographers for the project. The documentary, called Magic in the Streets, was released a year later and was a great success. It featured the stories of artists from different countries, including Martin, who became the central figure of the project. The film won awards at several film festivals and drew attention to the importance of supporting street art. Martin realized that all of these achievements were made possible by one random act of Keanu Reeves. He often recalled the day they were both arrested and wondered how this event turned into the beginning of something so great. For Martin, it was not only a story about kindness, but also about the power of believing in your own abilities. The Street Artist Support Foundation continued its work, helping more and more people. Martin dreamed that one day street art would be recognized on a par with other forms of creativity, and he continued to work towards this goal. His story was inspiring, and his work changed the world, reminding everyone that even the smallest act can be the beginning of great change.